and in 12 other communities across North Carolina. And why are we gathering? Because we are outraged at the General Assembly's attack on our rights on this day, July 1st, when newly adopted legislation will become the law. We gather to collectively call on the lawmakers of our state to address a 7-point People's Power agenda, to invest in children's education and safety, to fund and protect accessible health care.
That's right.
To keep bans off of birthing bodies and trans bodies.
Yes,
To uproot racism and protect immigrants. To create a just economy for all where we have living wages so that poverty doesn't continue to kill people. To defend voting rights and our democracy. And to protect our future with environmental justice and care and respect for our environment. North Carolinians want democracy for all, and our voices are not being heard by our General Assembly. This afternoon, you will hear community leaders speak briefly about each of these concerns in the 7-point agenda, followed by an opportunity for a speak out and also an opportunity to make commitments around what we are going to continue to do as a result of this first gathering. Our power, the power of the people, can and must work continuously and collaboratively so that corporate greed and power and closed-minded perspectives that are denying many citizens the opportunity to thrive. That's right. So that our voices counteract what is happening. Now, we know our movements can sometimes be fragmented, focusing on single issues. And today, what the People's Power Coalition is wanting to do is to inspire us to band together and organize across our issues. Because anything any of you care about is intersectional. What affects you affects me and affects everybody here. And it's important because anti-democratic forces are gaining strength and they are organized and well-funded. So today, let's listen, let's recognize and validate our outrage, and let's channel the outrage and anger towards action. Look around this space. This is what democracy calls us to do, to gather when we feel and see injustice. If we work together, there is no limit to what we can accomplish. We need to continue showing up and organizing for the common good, because that's what democracy calls us to do. Claire.
Show me what democracy looks like!
Democracy looks
Show me what democracy looks like!
This is what democracy looks like!
Show me what democracy looks like!
This is what democracy looks like!
Show me what democracy looks like!
This is what democracy looks like!
Show me what democracy looks like!
This is what democracy looks like!
Yo, let's get after it!
To get after it, we have Representative Julie Mayfield. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, everybody, for being here. You are right to be outraged. What they are doing is outrageous. And we are out. I get to be outraged for you every single day in their face. And I want you to know that there is only one party in the North Carolina General Assembly that is defending all of the things that you care about and is defending the rights of the most vulnerable people in our community. I know not everybody here likes Democrats, but that's the system we got right now. And you just need to know that we are making it difficult for them. We can't stop them, but we are making it painful for them, and they are pissed, but so are we, right?
Yes.
All right.
Send them home.
Send them home. So that's what I want to talk about. A healthy democracy rests on free and fair elections. Free and fair elections rest on fair maps. Unfortunately, the Republicans have taken successful aim at both of those things. Thanks to a North Carolina Supreme Court that is populated with the friends and family of the Republicans in the North Carolina General Assembly, gerrymandering is now open for business in the state of North Carolina. You all know that the Republicans have a supermajority right now in both the House and the Senate. That is not going to get any better with these maps. The congressional delegation, which is split 7-7, which is what it should be in a state like North Carolina, is probably going to be 10-4, 11-3, just like the first map that we saw a couple of years ago. Unacceptable, but there's honestly nothing, we have no legal recourse anymore on that point. So we just have to work around it. The other two things that they have done on the elections front, they just passed about 2 weeks ago Senate Bill 747. We call it the jumbo jet of election reform or election suppression. They are taking aim at same-day registration, absentee ballots, making it easier for people to challenge voters and voting. They are requiring, if you come to the polls with an assistant to help you vote, if you're old, if you're disabled, if you don't speak the language, they are going to require that person to sign a log that will be publicly available. That is just inviting targeting of those folks. So it's a terrible bill. We made it a little bit better, but here's the thing that you need to know going forward because of what they're taking aim at. Voting in North Carolina going forward, you need to show up in person and vote early. Unless you are literally out of the country or out of town, do not use absentee ballots. They are making it difficult. They are moving the deadline for receiving those to election day. There's no more 3-day grace period, folks. No more 3-day grace period. That's got to be postmarked and mailed and arrived at the Board of Elections by the end of election day. So if you are present, show up and vote. And please tell everybody that. We just have to change our strategy around that. The other thing is, of course, we also have voter ID that will be operative in this fall's elections. And so we just need to help everybody get a voter ID. The Board of Elections can get folks a voter ID. Please be paying attention, asking people about that. There is no reason that folks should not be able to vote because they don't have a voter ID. We can make that happen. Same-day registration that is used in the 2020 election, we had over 115,000 people using same-day registration. A lot of those are young people and students. And with the voter ID requirement and the additional documentation that you're going to have to show, it's just going to be very, very difficult for students to do that. Their position is students should be voting where they're from, not where they're living, not where they're going to school. So they're making that difficult. The last thing I want to mention is the bill that they passed reforming the State Board of Elections and local boards of elections. Right now, those boards of elections are essentially appointed by the governor and by local parties. Under this bill, the General Assembly will appoint those people. It will be an even number of people instead of an odd number of people. They are, in fact, giving the minority party equal appointments. But what that is likely to mean in this day and age and this heightened partisan situation we have is deadlock on a lot of things, including hiring the director of the Board of Elections at the state level. You know who gets to hire the director of the Board of Elections? If the State Board of Elections can't agree, just guess.
Phil Berger?
General Assembly. That's right. That's exactly right. So they are taking over. They are going to be making decisions. They are okay with gridlock at the local and state level on elections because they think it serves them. So how do we do this? We do exactly what has already been said. We've got to organize around it. We have got to turn out people. We have got to register people. When we show up in this state, we win. We win. And we have got to do that in spades, and not just here in Buncombe County, but all across the state. So when it comes time next November, if you are able to travel, if you are able to canvass and work on campaigns, and there's only ever a handful of seats that are close, that really matter, that will tip the balance of power, at least in terms of majority and supermajority, and we will need folks working in those districts. So I will leave you with that, and I look forward to working with you next year. Thank you.
So you heard it. When democracy is under attack, you organize and fight back. You register
And you fight back.
and you show up and you fight back. So thank you, Representative Mayfield. And now, when we think about creating an economy for all, we need to think about our workers. So our next speaker is Jen Hampton from Asheville Food and Beverage Workers. Jen.
Share this video, folks.
Howdy, y'all. My name is Jen Hampton, and I'm the chair of Asheville Food and Beverage United, AFBU. We're a worker-led coalition working really hard to advocate for, to support, educate, and most importantly, organize all service workers in the Asheville area. And you may or may not realize this, but Asheville service workers are in dire circumstances right now. We can't afford to live here because even though a lot of places are paying living wages or close to it, it's really not enough to keep up with the increase of the cost of living, which has gone up like 100% in the past several years, in large part due to the ridiculous rise of rent rates. Just so you know, in Asheville, we have the highest average rents and the lowest average income in the entire state. That just ain't right, y'all. It just ain't right. Ain't right. And we need to use our collective power to demand better from our community that our hard work supports. And like, as we all know, our economy here in Asheville runs on tourism. The unique and diverse collection of restaurants and breweries and hotels and other attractions is what brings people here from all over the world to enjoy what we have. And none of that would be possible without service workers, none of it. And it's time that we recognize that. We need to recognize the power that we have as service workers in this tourism economy. What I'm hearing from workers is, if I can't afford to live here anymore, then I don't want to work here anymore. And if we don't have people to work in our breweries and restaurants and hotels, then our tourism industry is going to fall apart. And that'll be devastating for the entire Asheville-Buncombe economy. And I think that we should be demanding that our elected city and county officials use every public resource available to ensure that the people who support this economy can live here. Because not only do we want to live here, we'd also like to enjoy the amenities that we help to create. It shouldn't just be for the people of middle or upper income that can afford to live here. So, what I'm really trying to say is an economy that works for all is the only economy that can thrive. And we've got to make some changes. We've got to start prioritizing workers because we have been left out of the conversation for far too long. And I've got some hope because you've got all kinds of people out here organizing workers in this community. We helped the Green Sage South workers organize, and then they unanimously voted to unionize last spring, so we have an official union at Green Sage, so that's pretty awesome. And I want to give a shout out to the Union of Southern Service Workers, because those folks are out there organizing low-wage service workers across the South. They are going to organize the South. And another one you may or may not have heard of is Restaurant Workers United. It's a small national union that started up a few years ago. They're organizing restaurant workers in Austin, Seattle, and even in Kentucky. And guess what? They're coming to Asheville soon. We're going to be working with them. Because, like I said about the Union of Southern Service Workers, we are going to all work together to organize the South. And towards that end, AFBU has a workshop coming up on Monday, July 10th at 5:30 p.m. at the West Asheville Park. We're going to be learning how to have structured organizing conversations with our co-workers and community members, organizing people around workplaces, around tenants' rights. We are going to organize everybody. So y'all come on out and learn that with us. And be sure to follow us on social media. We keep all our things updated on there so you can know what events are happening. On Instagram and Facebook, we're ABLFBU. Just look us up, stay informed. And with that, I just want to say that service workers are fed up and they can't take it no more. So I'm just going to leave it there. Solidarity, y'all.
So, as Jen said, the workers united will never be defeated, and you will get what you deserve. So let us make sure that, again, we continue supporting each other across issues. Another aspect of the people's agenda is investing in education. And we have Robin Lively Summers, an educator and a member of Indivisible Asheville. Robin.
Thank you so much for being here. It means so much that you're standing up and showing up. My name is Robin Lively Summers, and I've been an educator for 30 years. When I first started to teach in California, I was told over and over again how amazing North Carolina public education was. This state was a leader in best practices and student outcomes. Sadly, after the 1990s, this general knowledge among teachers began to change. I heard about the budget cuts, the stagnant teacher pay, and the long-running lawsuit of Leandro versus North Carolina State, alleging that students in poor rural counties were denied their right to a sound basic education under the North Carolina Constitution. I was planning to move to Asheville, so I paid attention. Was the state I was looking at specifically sets the Leandro spending obligation at $510 million. Hold on to that number. That was for the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction, another $134 million for the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services, and $35 million for the University of North Carolina system. But then, the Republican-held legislature has argued, obstructed, and litigated this ruling, proposing revisions that will reduce the outstanding Leandro spending down to as little as $376 million. Total. At a time when the North Carolina General Assembly has a funding surplus, they chose to put the money assigned to fund Leandro into that surplus, rather than spend it to address the well-documented and immediate needs of the North Carolina's children and the public school system. We must fund Leandro. We must fund Leandro. We must fund Leandro. We must fund Leandro. And another thing. The North Carolina House of Representatives moved to expand private school voucher eligibility to families of all incomes and spend nearly $400 million more annually on the vouchers in years to come. One of the biggest boosts in educational dollars in our state. The bill would divest from underfunded public schools and increase investment in the private landscape in which not all students are accepted. This includes allowing parochial schools access to public tax dollars. Where is the separation of church and state that my family is now paying for a Baptist education that forbids contraceptives and denies women's rights?
Boo.
It is estimated that public schools would lose thousands of students to the private schools, costing public schools more than $200 million annually in the 26-27 school year. This cannot be tolerated. Our public schools need more resources, not less. If students are struggling in overpopulated and under-resourced schools, then let's make the schools smaller and fully funded so that all North Carolinians have their state constitutional right to a sound and basic education. Fund our schools! Fund our schools! Fund our schools! Fund our schools! Stay mad, stay active, and don't give up. Thank you.
And that's why we're here, because we're not giving up. And now we're going to look at another item, uprooting racism. And we have Rob Thomas from the Racial Justice Coalition.
All right. Thank you for being here, everybody. I'm here to speak on uprooting racism. I only have a few minutes. I'm going to try to do the best that I can. You know, when I just look at the crowd, you know, I don't see any black people out here. And there's a reason. You know, these systems historically and currently do not work for us. Can you hear me now? Yes. All right. So I said that if you look around, there are not but what, one black person I think I saw in the crowd? And there is a specific reason for that. And I want to say I know that black person as well. Oh, okay. Okay. So, again, there's a specific reason for that. These systems historically and currently have not and are not working for us. You know, I look around at the different signs, and you know, what it says to me is we'll put energy into things that benefit all people. But where's the energy that benefit the people that are at the bottom? And, you know, I love all the signs, don't get me wrong, because things that lift up the bottom demographic of the community also help black people. But we need more, because our situation is more intentional. It's more strategic, and it's been implemented over centuries. You know, I always have to allude to reparations now. Go to rjcabl.org, join the listserv, because this is the first time in history that we have a massive opportunity to address multiple disparities at one time. And this doesn't happen very often. Like I said, matter of fact, this is the first time I've seen it. Civil rights was close, but still a lot was left out in that movement. So I have to say reparations now. Like again, go to the website. We've got all the information of why. Don't have the time to go into the why. Protecting immigrants' rights and immigration in general. Again, I have to lift up the black experience in this, because you know, I watched Ukraine and I've seen how America cried out. And I also saw, like, on one media station where they were showing how black people had an inequitable experience in that. The immigrants that were leaving Ukraine, the ones that were people of color, had a completely different experience. And still currently have a completely different experience. But I don't hear America crying out for that. You know, I don't hear anybody, but me and a few other people I know crying out for that. And so these things stay hidden until we uplift them. Construction on prisons. Yeah, I spent 11 years in there. And I'd like you all to think, if you've got an individual, many individuals who quality of life and ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, has affected them drastically. And so they have committed crimes either to survive, because quality of life, or out of their mental health. So you take these individuals and you send them to an extremely more traumatic environment. 95% of people who go to prison have a release date. How is that making the public safer? Please explain. Addressing the root causes, the quality of life, why the people are committing the crimes. That is where we need to be looking at as a society. We're nowhere near there yet. Nowhere near. And resources for people returning from home. You know, it's weird because I got out of prison and I had a drug trafficking charge. And with drug trafficking, it's mandatory sentencing. And the thing about it, when you get out, you can no longer get any type of federal assistance, period. So I didn't know that. When I got out, went down, tried to get my food stamp card, you know, sat there for 2 hours, went through the process for the lady to tell me that I could never get in life, get any type of government assistance. And it's like, okay, now what do you want me to do? You want me to die or roll over or go back to committing crime? That's what the options can feel like when you don't know that you have other options and the resources are not near. There's a gap in between the resources and the people that need them. I'm probably at my 5 minutes. I hope this has been as enjoyable for you as it has for me.
Thank you.
Website and sign the pledge for reparations now. Okay, another item on the people's agenda is protecting our future through environmental justice, and we have Beth Griffin with the Dogwood Alliance.
Hey y'all. I'm a stand-in, so I don't have any prepared remarks. But I do want to remind you that this work is intersectional. The environment matters. The future is in our environment, protecting our environment, working against climate change. Dogwood Alliance is working in southern forests to protect forests because forests protect us for clean air, clean water, a place to recreate, a place to renew, and cutting down our forests and burning them for wood pellets and sending them overseas to be burned for fuel is irresponsible and damages our communities. And I shouldn't get up when I don't know that I'm going to have to do this. So I appreciate you. I'm happy to tell you more about what we do, but I just want you to remember that there is no justice without us all working together on all of the issues that matter. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Beth. And in fact, friends, it is all intersectional. So thank you again for that reminder. Another item on the people's agenda is keeping bans off birthing bodies and trans bodies. And speaking to this is Rosemary Dodd from Democratic Socialists of America. Thank you, Rosemary.
Hey, everybody. So my name's Rosemary. I'm a bartender and service worker, member of the Asheville. Sorry, I'm too tall.
Yeah, you want to go that way.
Okay. We're good? All right. I'm a member of the Asheville chapter of the Democratic Socialists of America, and I'm super excited to be here talking with you guys today. So I want to start by asking y'all a few questions. Who owns your body? You or the Supreme Court?
Me!
Who gets to decide if you have a baby? You or Tricia Cotham?
Me!
Who gets to decide if you get life-saving gender-affirming care? You or the Republican Party?
I do!
That's right. Who here is ready to rally and fight and organize to tell the extremist right to take their new laws and go and shove them? An emboldened far-right minority is on the march all over the country, stripping away rights from women and transgender people. We see that right here in North Carolina, where Republicans have introduced a slew of anti-LGBTQ bills, one of which will ban health care for trans youth, and another which prevents trans girls from playing on women's sports teams. They've also gone after abortion, using their new veto-proof majority to pass a grotesque bill that will outlaw abortion after just 12 weeks. Even prior to 12 weeks, the bill places onerous restrictions on patients seeking abortions. It was rammed through in less than 48 hours without any chance for amendments and almost no room for public comment. Does that sound like something that would happen in a functioning democracy? No! These attacks aren't just women's and queer issues, they're also class issues. Wealthy people may be inconvenienced by this legislation, but they'll be able to travel, take time off work, and pay exorbitant fees to get the medical care that they need, all while poor and working class people in need of abortion and gender affirming care will face massive barriers. Many will even lose their lives. These attacks on bodily autonomy go hand in hand with overall attacks on our living standards. We're seeing gutted social services, declining real wages, and out of control housing prices, all while the billionaire class gets richer and richer. History has shown over and over again that there is only one way to defeat the far right and win higher living standards for all of us, and that is by organizing. We need a mass movement willing to engage in disruptive, escalating protest action. Rights have never been handed down from on high, they've always been won in the streets. Roe happened because of the women's liberation movement. Queer rights advanced because queer people organized for it. Black people got rights because they hit the streets in the civil rights movement. And these victories aren't simply relics of the past, they're happening today. Abortion rights were recently won in Argentina and Ireland because regular people discovered their collective power and used it. We're only going to defeat these attacks on our bodies by building a new feminist movement, one that fights for economic justice, one that embraces trans rights and anti-racism. We need to raise our expectations of what is possible and fight like hell for it. I want to see you raise your hand if you think the status quo before these bills came down was good enough. Absolutely not. That's because we don't just need the right to have abortions and trans health care on paper. We need them to be free and provided on demand as part of universal health care. When it comes to trans rights, we demand not just life-saving medical care, but all of the conditions for our trans siblings to thrive and live lives free from discrimination. Where housing and healthcare are human rights, where people can use the bathrooms and play on the sports teams that match their genders without fear. When it comes to reproductive rights, we don't just demand the right to get abortions, we demand reproductive justice with free childcare and living wage jobs. Reproductive justice is an idea that activists, and particularly Black feminists, have been emphasizing for years. And that's because choice is meaningless if you can't also choose to have a baby because you're poor or you don't have enough support. That's why I'm a socialist feminist. We deserve a world where all of our basic needs are met, where we have bodily autonomy, period, without having to fight or beg for it. But the key question now is, how do we actually get there? I think protests like this are a great start. I'm honored to be here, and I think it's amazing that this day of action is happening all over the state. But to win, we have to escalate. Imagine for a moment if the large feminist organizations like Planned Parenthood or NARAL joined with left-wing politicians to call for coordinated, sustained protests all across the country that could bring not just thousands of people out, but millions. Imagine if the power of labor was brought to bear. Strikes are the most powerful tool at our disposal to win better living conditions. Several years ago, women in Poland temporarily stopped anti-abortion legislation by going on strike. There is nothing that the ruling class and the fascists fear more than a powerful labor movement fueled by solidarity across race, gender, immigration status, and more. To win reforms in the short term and to build power for a socialist world based on real grassroots democracy, we need to be organized. And I believe that that has to go beyond the two-party system. I think we need our own party for working class and oppressed people, one that is rooted in workplaces and communities, that combines electoral campaigns with labor organizing and street protests. Don't get me wrong, the Republican Party is the most immediate threat, and I believe it's important to defeat them both in the ballot box and in the streets. But I also think that the Democratic Party has proven itself utterly inadequate to fight back against these right-wing attacks. Just for one example, when Dobbs came down, Biden didn't even try to stop the courts. He didn't even try to overturn the filibuster to pass the Women's Health Protection Act. To the Democratic Party establishment, us having control over our own bodies ended up being less important than norms and process. Without a real independent left alternative, we're going to continue down this road where an increasingly radical right wing continues to advance, and the corporate wing of the Democratic Party is too tied to the current system to do what's necessary to stop them. I'm a socialist. I believe that ultimately we have to get rid of this sick capitalist system that puts private profit over human need, that destroys our environment and continually enriches the few at the expense of the rest of us. Through capitalism, rights that are fought for and won, like abortion, like queer rights, like voting rights, are constantly under threat of being rolled back. Despite the setbacks that we're facing, looking at all of y'all today, I still believe that we are going to be the architects of our own futures. And that is going to be a future with full bodily autonomy. That is going to be a future where trans lives matter, Where abortion is healthcare, and where the vast majority of people, not just the far right and some billionaires, are making all of the decisions. And that's a socialist future. If you agree, there's a table right next to me where you can talk to some organizers from DSA and get involved. We're also running a sustainer campaign for the Carolina Abortion Fund that gives money directly to people who are seeking abortions. Of course, we're fighting to win free abortion as part of a universal healthcare system, but in the meantime, people are suffering, so we need to chip in. So go to that table and sign up, and let's end with the chant. When trans rights are under attack, what do we do? Stand up, fight back! When abortion rights are under attack, what do we do? Stand up, fight back! Thank you.
Thank you, Rosemary. So who are the architects of our lives? We are. Thank you. And lastly, we're going to talk a little bit more about healthcare, and we have Lauren Steiner from NC Medicare for All.
Hi everyone, this is going to be good because I forgot my speech. But I think I remember. Okay, first of all, how many people in this group, I'm going to try to find out who has health insurance. How many people have health insurance through your employer? So maybe 3 or 4 or 5. How many people have health insurance through the Affordable Care Act? So maybe another 3, 4, or 5. How many people have it through Medicare or Medicaid? Oh, we got more there, maybe about 10. How many do not have health insurance at all? Okay, so a small minority. I'm actually glad to hear that because we are the only industrialized country in the world which does not provide health care as a right to all its citizens. I've been an activist for 20 years almost, fighting. When I lived in California, our first bill was in 2004. We've had 3 bills. We couldn't get it passed even in a Democratic state. And right now, Pramila Jayapal has introduced her Medicare for All bill in the House again, and it has 112 co-sponsors. All Democrats, no Republicans. That's the largest number of co-sponsors it's ever had, but it's not even half the Democratic Party. And here in North Carolina, we have 7 Democratic House members, and only 2 of them are co-sponsoring Medicare for All. This is because the healthcare industry is the largest lobbyist. They spend the most money in the country. I think I once heard Bernie Sanders say they have 6 lobbyists for every member of Congress, walking the halls daily. Last year they spent $713 million lobbying, and that was up 70% in the last 20 years. So this is why it would help to have the notes. I just want to make sure I get that right. So now, while we've been fighting and not getting Medicare for All for this reason, we have a new problem, and that is the privatization of the Medicare that we currently have in the form of Medicare Advantage. How many people are on a Medicare Advantage plan in here? Okay, so let me tell you something about Medicare Advantage. It actually is private health insurance. It is not traditional Medicare. There is a middleman, an insurance company, in between you and your health care. They are not providing health care. 1 out of 5 procedures was wrongfully denied by Medicare Advantage insurance companies last year. And they are also bankrupting Medicare because while in 2010 only 25% of people were enrolled in it, this year for the first time a majority of people in Medicare are enrolled in a Medicare Advantage. And they are actually costing the Centers for Medicaid and Medicare more money because they overbill them for procedures. They do something called upcoding, which is where they make you look like you're sicker than you actually are. Not only that, they only have to spend 60% on the actual health care, whereas traditional Medicare spends 98%. And there was just an article in the Leader publication about how many people cannot get life-saving treatment and medication because they're on Medicare Advantage. So I just want to tell you, you get to re-enroll every year. Please, if you're on Medicare Advantage, switch over to traditional Medicare before it's too late. Now, what's happening here on the state level is not all bad. I was actually surprised. I spoke to my colleague, Rebecca Cerise, who does health care for the North Carolina Justice Center, and you probably all know that Medicaid expansion was finally approved by the Republican legislature. But the problem is that they haven't approved the budget yet, and it's probably not going to happen until the end of July, beginning of August, so there's a period of time where people may get knocked off their Medicaid for purely procedural reasons. So what you need to do if you're on Medicaid or you know anyone on Medicaid is tell them to check in with the Department of Health and Social Services so that they know where they can be found. And another tip Rebecca gave me is they have this thing called Family Planning Medicaid, which you can sign up for even if you can't get pregnant, and they offer it to you. Sign up for Family Planning Medicaid, because you will then automatically be enrolled in Medicaid expansion once the budget is passed. So a couple of other things I want to tell you on the healthcare front. There's the Medical Debt De-Weaponization Act that passed the House, which basically says that you can't be dinged for having too much medical debt, and medical collection agencies cannot use unreasonable methods to go after you. Now this has passed the Senate, but she's telling me it may not pass the House because the House is really taken over by the Hospital Association, and naturally they're opposed to this. The other thing that passed the Senate is medical marijuana, and we don't know if it's going to pass the House this year. It may. And then another thing was the postpartum for maternal and CHIPS program has been extended from 2 months to 12 months, which is very important because it's a very important equity issue, because black maternal mortality is way higher than white maternal mortality. So the opportunity to have this go for a whole year is very fortunate. On the local level, we have Josh Stein, who is our Attorney General running for governor, finally cracking down on HCA, who for-profit company who bought Mission Hospital and is running it into the ground. And the current issue they're working on is cancer docs. Apparently there's only one cancer doc there for the entire Asheville community. There used to be 14, and there's an entity who's supposed to be monitoring HCA to make sure they're in compliance with the agreement, Gibbons Associates, and they're not doing their job. So hopefully we'll have some action on that front. And that's all I have to tell you about health care, but just keep fighting for Medicare for all, and hopefully before I die, we will see it.
Can you hear me? Okay, yeah, I bet you can. I'd like to start by taking this opportunity to thank all of you for turning out today to be in solidarity with folks from all across the state. This is happening in 13 cities right now. For turning out to stand up and fight back for a real democracy and a just society where every vote counts, every voice is heard, and every single one of us gets what they need, not just to survive, but to thrive. I'd like to thank all of our wonderful speakers and all the organizations and individuals who've come together to make this event possible. Thank you for your beautiful words. Thank you for your work. And thank you for your commitment to justice. I'd particularly like to commend and uplift the work of someone who is not on our speakers roster today, but without them, none of this could have happened. Everett, could you raise your hand? Everett is relatively new to Asheville, but is a longtime movement stalwart, and without their efforts, this event could not have happened. When you come to an event like this, what you're seeing is the end result of a whole lot of work Most of that work is invisible, it is thankless, and it is deeply unsexy. It is also absolutely critical. This kind of coalition work is especially demanding. There are a lot of different people and organizations who've come together today, each of us bringing our own specific perspectives, our diverse experiences, and our pet issues with us. Everett has been working like a dog to bring us all together, to see the pesky little details that turn energy and outrage into organizing, and just generally keep our eyes fixed on the work ahead. Everett, I know you like to work from behind the scenes, but if you're organizing with you, you're going to take your roses just like everybody else. So before we move on, y'all, can I get a thank you, Everett? My name is Claire Clark, and I'm a member of the Party for Socialism and Liberation. PSL is a national political party organizing actively in more than 200 communities across the United States. We are a party for the poor, the working, and the oppressed, by the poor, the working, and the oppressed. We believe that a better world is possible, a world without exploitation, oppression, bigotry, or unmet need. We believe a better world is possible, but we know that only the power of the people can build it. In a few moments, we will wrap up our planned program and open up the mic so you can raise your voices and be heard. Before we do that, I want to close with a few more words about why we're here. The slate of hate emanating from the Republican legislative majority in Raleigh didn't come from nowhere, and North Carolina is not the only battleground. What we're seeing right now in this state is the culmination of a nationwide, decades-long scheme by the far right to roll back the democratic rights won through the power of the people. And make no mistake about it, the rights currently under assault were won, not given. They were the fruits of victorious struggle waged by ordinary people who came together collectively to place their hands upon history and bend its moral arc towards justice. But inch by inch and piece by piece, the far right has undermined what was won. They have eroded away the gains of the labor movement and the struggles that were won by the labor movement and the struggles for black freedom, for women's liberation and LGBTQ rights. They have moved patiently and insidiously, using every tactic available, 24/7 propaganda spewed from the far-right media corporations, legal maneuvering in the undemocratic and unelected federal court system, mass disenfranchisement, floods of dark money, even open violence. Witness Charlottesville, the fascist attacks on pride events and drag shows, and the half-assed coup attempt on January 6, 2021. The far right has proved the far right has moved patiently and insidiously, and they've been very effective. But after decades of slow playing their hand, they are now turning up the heat and coming after all the core gains our struggles have won, and they're coming for them all at once. On the surface, that looks like a power move, right? It looks like a move made from a position of strength. In reality, it is a reflection of the weakness and vulnerability of the far right, and despite the cloak of bravado from their heated rhetoric, they're moving fast now because they're afraid. They're afraid of us. They're afraid of us. They're afraid of you and me. They're afraid of what we can do together. They're afraid of the people, and they damn well should be. Our enemies, the enemies of the people, are not stupid. They can read the census data and see the ground changing under their feet. They can read the polls and see that for all their success in implementing it, their political agenda and program is wildly unpopular, opposed on almost every issue from abortion rights to public safety by supermajorities of Americans. That's why they have to work so hard to suppress the vote. That's why they've got us in these jacked up, gerrymandered districts. If they had to take the right-wing agenda to the American people, they take nothing but L's from now till they call that roll up yonder, and they know it. They know it. They look at these things and they're afraid, and now they want to cash out and lock it all in while they still can. That's what we're up against, a small minority of frightened people desperate to avoid being called to account for the works they have done. So I've got to ask you, y'all want to lay down for people who are scared of us, or do y'all want to show them that they were right to fear? So this is the People's Agenda for North Carolina. You can grab flyers over there and take a closer look at this. This is what we're fighting for. I think it's important that we understand that these demands, this agenda, it's not just a grab bag of things we'd like to have or a laundry list of desires scribbled out on a napkin. It is an accounting of what's at stake and under assault right here in North Carolina. And it lays out the bare-ass minimum of what ordinary people need and the bare-ass minimum of what it takes to say with a straight face that we live in a democratic society. Without bodily autonomy, we can't plausibly claim that we live in a democracy. Without inclusive education, with our educators muzzled and forbidden to teach the truth, we can't plausibly claim to live in a democracy. A society built on the mudsill of institutional white supremacy and mass incarceration cannot credibly be called democratic. There can be no democracy in a place where masses of people are unhoused, denied access to health care, denied a political voice, or first forced to work for poverty wages in unbearable conditions. There is no democracy at work when the planet that is the only home any of us have ever or will ever have is plundered for private gain. One of the big line items on this People's Agenda is defend democracy, but I'll tell you the truth, every single thing we're fighting for is not only a defense of democracy, but a clarion call to define and build a new democracy, a real democracy, a people's democracy. Beginning to take up that task is why we're here today. I'm glad to see folks turn out today. I'm glad to see people mobilized to raise their voices here in Asheville and across North Carolina. But that is just the first step, and the easiest step at that. What comes after is the hard work of organizing ourselves and taking part in that work is something I want to lay on you today. It is important that we make our demands, but we can only win what we are organized to take. There's only one struggle, but there are a ton of ways you can get involved. Over the next few months, the North Carolina People's Power Coalition will be working to build people's assemblies across North Carolina, including here in Asheville. The final form of this organizing will come out of a dialogue between everyone involved in that organizing. But if you're interested in being part of building our people's assembly, sign up at this table. We've got a couple of folks. We had some folks with red shirts also moving through the crowd. So if you signed up with Marcos, for instance, that also is a way to do that. The local, I'd like to add that the local work around reparations for our black community that has been led by the Racial Justice Coalition is moving toward a new phase. Recommendations and demands of the city and county will be coming out soon, and when they do, we all need to be prepared to get behind them and raise hell until the politicians deliver on their promises. A lot of the organizations involved in putting this event on today have tables here. Talk to the folks who are tabling and find a way to pull in that makes sense for you. If you're working in the restaurant industry, connect with Jen from Asheville Food and Beverage United. DSA is here, Indivisible Asheville is here, the Dogwood Alliance is here, RJC is here. Talk to folks, find a way to take a stand. Hell, if you're looking for a fight, DSL can get you in the fight, and we're looking for comrades, so holla. Again, I want to thank everyone for coming out today. We're about to open the mic for the speak out portion of the rally. So if you've got something you'd like to say, if you could gather up here near the mic, we can get your voice heard. I just want to close out with one final question for y'all. Who's got the power?
Hi, I'm Leslie Boyd, and I'm with the Poor People's Campaign. Yes, we love the Poor People's Campaign. We will be partnering with the other PPC. We were the original, you're PPC Junior, I'm sorry. But we're doing it because nearly half of Americans live in or near poverty. That's despicable in a place with more than enough. 15 years ago, my son died from lack of access to health care. Since then, more than 1.5 million Americans have died from the same cause. We've made no progress. It is time to make progress. And if you want to work with us, we're happy to have you, because we need to take the rich and take them down a number of pegs. Billionaire wealth increased more than $2 trillion during the pandemic. $2 trillion. And they got tax breaks, and they got loans, and they got grants, and we got crap. Well, it's time for us to stand up and go, forward together! Forward together! You can find us on the internet at poorpeoplescampaign.org. We would love to have you sign up, get in on the emails, and work with all these other local organizations. One of the most important things we do is we partner with other organizations, and that just makes us stronger because it gives us more diversity. We are young and old and male and female and Christian and Muslim and people without a formal faith. We are America, and we will take it back. One more time. Forward together.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Anybody want to share? What is it that is breaking your heart that brought you out here today? Because when things are not right, we need to speak up, and we need to be present to each other. Is anybody else wanting to share anything that is on their heart? Hi, wow, I didn't know I was going to do this until 10 seconds ago. I don't have a speech prepared. Holy shit. Hello, everybody. Hi. My name is Jessie. I actually was a longtime resident of North Carolina. I grew up in Concord. I've lived in South Carolina for a couple years now, so I came up today just to spend the day with y'all. There's a lot of issues that we could talk about today, but it seems like we've talked a lot about healthcare, and that's an issue that weighs near and dear in my heart too. I was one of those who raised my hand to say, no, I am not currently insured by health insurance. I'd like to tell y'all about a story 27 years ago when my mother was pregnant with me. And during that pregnancy, which she was very sick, and she almost died. And the reason that she did not die while she was pregnant was because she had access to health insurance through my father and his employer. Health insurance that helped keep her and myself alive in the hospital until I was born. I don't have health insurance today. I do have a health condition. It's called endometriosis. It affects anywhere from 5 to 10% of women of childbearing age today. And it's one of the most painful conditions in the world. And unfortunately, we don't have a cure for it. Surgery is able to treat some people if you can afford it. And there are in vitro fertilization and other fertilization treatments to help women who want to become pregnant if they can afford it.
Yeah, they're not insured.
They're not insured. If you get pregnant and you cannot afford health complications with health insurance, you can't afford to carry that baby to full term. If I were to get pregnant today, there's a good chance I couldn't carry that baby to full term. Unfortunately, I don't even have strong access to any type of health treatment because I don't have health insurance. Because it costs hundreds of dollars just to get to an urgent care, much more to get to a specialist. Surgery is just out of the damn question. So I guess the reason that I'm up here speaking today is to say that while we're pushing and trying to force women and those of us with vaginas to give birth, which I could
say much about that, but other people have already come up and said a very good deal about it. What I'm here to say is that you can't force people to carry a child to term without even giving them health insurance in order to do it. You can't. If you're going to look out for the safety of babies, the safety of children as they are being born, you've got to look out for them in the womb too, and that means health insurance for mothers. That means health insurance for everybody. That means health insurance for the babies from the beginning, from the time forward. And if you consider that a baby in the womb, then that baby in the womb needs health insurance too. I think that's about all I have to say. Thank you all so much for listening.
Well, hey everybody, people call me Badger, also known as the artist D-Sin, and for the last almost 31 years I've been living art in America. I've declared myself to be an act of art, that my existence is my performance, and a performance of resistance. I was born a queer child in 1957, when it was still considered to be an illness that you could cure with castrations or lobotomies or electroshock treatments. It was also considered a crime where you could be put away in prison for life if you get caught with your trousers down. And all of this is based on somebody's idea that they know what God wants. I am so fucking sick of somebody telling me they know what God wants.
That's right.
For centuries, people like me have been burnt at the stake, they've been fed to the dogs, they've been crucified because some asshole thinks they know what God wants. If God created all the heavens and earth, those that crawl and fly and swim, how could any one single person ever pretend to know what God wants? However, one more thing. If anybody wants to know what Nazi Germany was like in the 30s, just go to Florida today. You'll find DeSanto, Sighal, some people out there wearing Christ on their sleeve like a swastika armband. But my main function these last 30-something years, and actually since Richard Nixon, this criminal, declared the war on drugs in 1971, is the war on drugs. The war on drugs is a war on everybody. We don't need housing and clinics and education. We need more prisons. Right? Jim Crow never ended. They just rebranded it as the war on drugs and went full speed ahead. Last summer on the 4th of July, there were still people out here demonstrating against the Roe versus Wade decision. I got a wild hair of my ass and spray painted on this plywood says, "We don't need no Taliban. We just got the GOP." P.S. Jesus was queer. I got arrested for that and 3 other things that I did not do. I spent 80 days in this shithole called Buncombe County Detention Facility. Here it is a year later, I am still dealing with this. But the war on drugs, a criminal named Nixon declared it because all those hippies getting high and protesting the Vietnam War, and I was one of them, declared it on his enemies. Here it is 50 years later. How many millions and millions of Americans and people around the world have suffered incredible indignities? We have over 100,000 people dead of overdose last year. Thanks to Sacklers. The Sacklers started pushing Valiums in the 50s and 60s, and then the Oxycontins. They're billionaires. We have people dead on the street or rotting in prison because they can't get help because they're criminals with the war on drugs. So if you want better health care, if you want better education, if you want anything, housing, even better sidewalks, and the war on drugs, all right?
Thank you.
Hey y'all! Okay, so I'm loud, so I don't know if I need this mic that much, so I'll try to... Alright, we'll be good. So, my name is Calypso, originally named Anna Grace Waller. Some of you may know my dad, David Waller. He owned a screen printing business downtown for 18 years. He was involved with this organization and he loved it so much. I am here purely by chance because I decided to go down there and give away free art today. I'm an artist and I'm an Asheville local and native. I grew up here protesting things like this, working with people, trying to bring people together, and this is what matters. This is what we care about. This is what we do. And so I'm over there and I'm looking for anybody that's a volunteer, anybody willing to help. What my organization and what I want to start is a foundation that pays artists to do free art for businesses so that the artist is fully compensated with no competition trying to lower their bids so that they can get that business to pay for it. The business will benefit, so we could save businesses from going out of business. We have so many resources here. We can find door-to-door donations for paint. Who here has a paint can in the back of their shed that they're not using? One of our volunteers might come to your house and help donate and create it. You know, this is something that could grow hugely if we just get a little support, a little ground. And WLS just told me that they would come and cover our grand opening. So please help support us. Go to FR33TH3ART, that's Free the Art, all the threes are the E's, on Instagram, Facebook, and Patreon, and check out our movement. We're going to change the world through art. That includes all arts too, by the way, including everybody of all socioeconomic, eco standards, whatever. We want to include every color, every race, every sex,